Welcome to the first unit. In this unit, or in this video, I should say, we are going to be going over the number line. So the number line is defined as a visual representation that shows how different values of numbers increase and decrease. So to get a better understanding of the number line, let's draw one out here. So on the right side and the left side of this number line, I'm going to draw arrows. And these arrows are indicating to us that the number line goes on forever to the left and goes on forever to the right. And then in the middle, I'm going to draw a dash or a line, and I'm going to put the number 0 there. So any numbers to the right of 0, these are going to be all of our positive numbers. And any numbers to the left of 0, that is going to be all of our negative numbers. So let's write out numbers from the right of 0. So that's going to be a positive number. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now going to the left of 0, we're going to have our negative numbers. So this is going to be -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. So now that we got the number line drawn out, let's use that to compare some values. But to compare some values, we're going to use something called inequality symbols. And inequality symbols are symbols that are used to compare values. So the majority of the time, we're going to be using these two symbols here. Now, these two symbols are indicating to us that a certain number is greater than or less than another number. And one thing I do want to point out before we get to work with some examples, on this end of an inequality symbol, I'm going to refer to that as the open end. Now, that's not an official definition, but I just like to use that side of an inequality symbol to describe how we orient inequality symbols when comparing values. And then another thing to note is that you always want this open end of the inequality symbol facing towards whatever the larger value is. So with that in mind, I encourage you to pause the video and work through example 1 on your own before we go through it. So assuming you have given it a try, we are comparing the value 1 and 2. And in this case, 2 is our greater value. So we are going to draw out the inequality symbol facing towards. We're gonna draw out the inequality symbol with the open end facing towards 2. Now I encourage you to try example 2 on your own. Assuming you have given a go, we are comparing the values 1 and -1. And since 1 is positive and -1 is negative, 1 is going to be greater than -1. So we're going to face the open end of the inequality symbol towards the 1. Now, example 3, we are comparing the values -5 and -7. Now, before I go through each example, I do encourage you to pause the video and give it a try on your own, just because you will learn more from doing it yourself and then seeing if you get it correct or wrong. And maybe if you do get it wrong, you can see why you got it wrong and you'll be able to learn from that. So assuming you have tried example 3, we are comparing the values -5 and -7. So one thing I do want to point out is negative numbers, when you're comparing two negative numbers, it can kind of get confusing at first because it's not as intuitive as positive numbers. So in this case, -5 is actually larger or greater than -7. So we're going to want the open end facing towards that -5. And the reason being, if you think about it like this, right? So we know that if the more and more right we go on the number line, the more and more right we go on the number line, we're going to have larger positive numbers, right? But when we go to the left of the number line, the more and more left we go, the smaller our numbers get. So in this case, right, if you think about it like this, -5 is here, and -7 will be over here. And -5 is closer to 0 or closer to the positive numbers than -7 would be. So that is one way to think about it. And then in the end example 4, we are comparing the values -3 and -3. And in this case, since both the numbers are the same, we just write the equal symbol or the equal sign. Oh. So moving on, we're going to be talking about a little bit about absolute value. An absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. So looking at example 5, we have the absolute value of 5, which is 5, and we have the number 4. So we're comparing the values 5 and 4. And in this case, 5 is larger than 4, so we're going to have the open end of the inequality symbol facing towards the 5. In example 6, we have the absolute value of -7 and the absolute value of 7. And the absolute value of -7 is 7, and the absolute value of 7 is also 7. So in this case, both of our values are equal. And then in example 7, we have the absolute value of -3 and the absolute value of 3. And the absolute value of -3 is 3, and the absolute value of 3 is also 3. So in this case, both our values are also equal to each other. And then in example 8, we have the absolute value of -2, which is 2, and then just -2 is just -2. And in this case, 2 is greater than -2, so therefore we're going to draw the open end of the inequality symbol facing towards the absolute value of -2. Thank you, and I will see you next lecture.